When I was an import model, so many people said hateful things to me online, like really, really horrible things. At first, I was really deeply hurt and traumatized by it. But as it keeps happening over and over, you just stop caring what anybody else thinks. And I think that really, really helped me in my writing career. Writing for published outlets, you're pitching constantly, and you're getting rejected 99% of the time. And somebody not replying to your email is nothing compared to people saying horrible things to you online. A lot of writers I speak to hate and feel rejected when their pitch is not accepted, and I just don't care.
Well, I love the San Gabriel Valley.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast.
So I grew up here and I still live in Alhambra.
I was raised in between Temple City and Alhambra.
Eventually resided in South San Gabriel.
Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley.
Monterey Park has pretty much been my whole life.
Well, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley.
We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you are from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome. All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We do appreciate it. Kaila, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Your book opens with an interesting story that happened in public. How did that experience shape the themes, talked about in your book? And can you talk about that experience?
That kind of stuff happens all the time. So it just happened to happen in front of somebody who was not familiar with it at all. But I just want to bring up, it happened this morning. I bring up like a lot of what I call Asian files, which is men with an Asian fetish. It's so common for them to message me and be like, I have an Asian wife and blah, 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 blah. And it happened this morning. And I'm like, first of all, does your wife know that you're messaging like a much younger woman on the internet? I think this, but I feel like maybe I should say it sometimes. I say it in the book. But and then he like proceeds to compare her to like a border collie. He's like, I tell my wife that she's like a border collie. She like just gets stuff done, the cleaning and the this and that. And I was like, you don't even realize that this is like, and he's like, I can't wait to read your book. And I'm like, I can't wait for you to read my book. You need to read my book,
Wow.
Like,
did you respond?
I did not respond because my response would be like, does your wife know you're messaging me? And I'm just like, I don't want to engage. I do want him to read the book because there's some education needed here. It's just so oblivious.
There's so many topics I'm excited to have in this conversation. But before that, thank you to Paris Baguette for sponsoring the delicious pastries every week for our guests. If you haven't already, go check them out in the city of San Gabriel on Las Tunas and say hi to Jason for us. Today's guest is a cultural shapeshifter, someone who's been at the heart of multiple industries, all while challenging the narratives imposed on her. She started as a performer fronting an all-Asian American female rock band that toured internationally, then shifted into journalism, writing for outlets like the New York Times, Rolling Stone, and the Los Angeles Times. She's also a world traveler, ocean lover, and certified freediver with stories that stretch from celebrity red carpets to underwater caves. Her new memoir takes us deep into the intersections of race, sexuality, beauty, and belonging. It's part personal reckoning, part cultural critique, a brave and unflinching look at how Asian women are seen and how she learned to see herself. Her book, Fetishized, A Reckoning with Yellow Fever, Feminism, and Beauty, hits shelves August 19th. I'm excited to have in the studio today Kaila Yu. Kaila, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there.
Yeah. Great intro. You summed it all up.
In the short time that I've connected with you and sort of, following you on social media, you have your hand in so many different things.
Well, it's so necessary. Now, like AI is coming for all our jobs. So we got to be able to pivot and be doing multiple things because the world is just changing so rapidly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so your You're an author, you're a traveler, you're a writer, you're a content creator. You do all these things. And yet on social media, I see you just enjoying life also.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people who are on my social media think I'm just this rich lady of leisure traveling, but I am traveling for work. Like it is work. I'm a travel writer, so they don't see, because I post all I'm like relaxing by the pool, but they don't see that every second I have free, I'm taking notes or creating content or like turning into deadline for article or like on a different time zone trying to interview a subject because my editor wants it done in the next 2 hours. So it is work. I'm just not showing the work because that's not as maybe fun to see.
I love your green screen commentary too. Like you have this energy and perspective on things that's, I would say raw and fun at the same time, right? But the show is called the My SGV podcast. So Kaila, let's start with that. What is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
So I actually grew up in Upland, California. So that's like the IE. But when I was old enough in high school, we'd sneak out at night and come to the SGV. And it was a long drive from Upland, but we would do it because there was like St. Honors Cafe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we used to go to St. That was my spot, Garden Cafe. There were the pool halls that people got shot up at. I don't remember what it's called. But we used to go to those places. And then when I was in my 20s, I had a property in Temple City. So I lived there probably like 4 years or something.
It sounds like, I mean, those names are all familiar to me, that sort of scene.
Yeah.
Was it more the car scene, the gang scene? Like what was your draw to the SGV?
I think it was the gang scene because we were like 6% Asian in Upland. And then I kind of discussed this in the book. I forgot her name because I changed all the names of everyone in the book, so they all have fake names. But I befriended this like really cool Asian girl in my high school, and she was friends with all these gangster guys, and it seemed so cool because I was so nerdy and like this other world of like cool Asians. So yeah, we were just trying to hang out with the bad Asians.
And so you grew up in Upland. What was life like growing up there?
I didn't face a lot of racism, but I was just very sheltered, and my mom was very, very strict, the typical tiger mom. Yeah, it was just a quiet suburban life, really, until I was about 15 or 16 and started sneaking out to San Gabriel. And that's when I started ditching school and got caught shoplifting. Like all the bad stuff happened when I started going to San Gabriel. I don't know if that puts San Gabriel doesn't have anything to do with that, but that just happened to intersect at the same time.
And when you look back on that strictness, I mean, I think most adults can look at that and see like how the rebellion is born from that. What sort of led up to that point where you're like, okay, I'm just going to follow the rules, and now I'm like going to just not follow them anymore?
I was totally meeting that girl. I can't remember her name in the book because it's a fake name, but
she knows who she is.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe, but she just gave me permission. You know, like I didn't know about San Gabriel. I didn't know about gangs. Like I didn't know about any of these things. So it was her, and then she kind of gave me a makeover to be cool. So it was just having a leader.
One of the things I wanted to touch on was this idea of having an emotionally neglectful father figure. Did you know that when you were growing up, like that you were craving this, or did you only look back in hindsight and look at your behavior and say like, okay, I see what I was doing there?
Yeah, I had no idea. And I want to stress that my dad is such a good dad, but he was not like, his dad wasn't that way. His brothers aren't that way. And that's just like how the culture in my family was. Like, I don't think he was trying to be emotionally distant or unkind, but it's how I interpreted it as a little girl. Like, I think unconsciously, I really wanted that love from like a man figure in my life, and I just didn't get it.
Were you acting out in other ways to get it as a child?
I was like really boy crazy, but like boys didn't pay attention to me until maybe senior year of high school. So I guess it was maybe just a lot of longing because there wasn't any kind of reciprocal feeling. So I wasn't really getting it from anywhere.
I'm very familiar with the idea of emotional neglect, having experienced it myself, and also not wanting to perpetrate that on my children, right? Like, yes, it's understandable to see how our parents may have been not aware of it, and there's forgiveness there, right? But like, it's still like the impact can still be seen and felt, and can be acknowledged without saying like, oh, you're a bad person, like this thing was hurtful or whatever, right? Did you find what you were looking for sneaking out?
Probably not. I mean, I found a lot of fun, but I wouldn't say I found the validation I wanted. I found, I guess, an outlet for just feeling really, well, I felt, I think Asian kids feel really unseen because we're not allowed to have our own desires or like our own goals, or at least my generation, we were like, you be a doctor, lawyer, whatever. So if you happen to be more creative, that was not at all encouraged. So I felt a little bit more seen because like I was getting to express this other side of myself that wasn't so rigid and buttoned up.
And so as you're coming out of your shell, so to speak, and your parents, like, they must have been seeing this and observing this, what was their reaction?
Well, my dad wasn't involved with us like disciplining because he wasn't allowed to. My mom's very domineering and she runs the like kids part of the house. And my mom and I had a really contentious relationship growing up. Like once I started rebelling, there was a lot of screaming fights and like a lot of her catching me sneaking out and just like, screaming fights.
And you've since reconciled that with her?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to Japan. I'm bringing her on a work trip to Japan next week, so we are all good. But I mean, it was a long time ago.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean about like not being truly seen, right? Like, what is your thought life? What are your fears? What are your aspirations? What are you hoping to become? Like, all these questions are never asked, like, to truly be seen.
Yeah, or they're shut down. Like, I think if you say like, oh, I would love to take gymnastics, and they're like, that's stupid, like that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Even a healthy, normal level of sexuality is sort of suppressed, right? Because like humans are by nature sexual beings, and to not have even a conversation or that like completely ignored as a reality is very harmful, I think.
Yeah, completely ignored, I would say, is how Asian households are. They don't acknowledge sex whatsoever.
Right. Okay. And so you're hanging out with this crowd and coming to the SGV, and when did your path sort of move into, the modeling and the cars and all that? How did you get into that?
I think when I was in high school, somebody showed me a flyer of Sung-hee Lee, who was like kind of a super famous on the internet Korean Playboy model at the time. And when I first saw her, I was like, wow, I didn't even know there were Asian models in the world. And she was so beautiful. And there was no other kind of examples of women like her for me to look up to, that I really latched onto her. And then from that moment, I kind of started collecting anything I saw of her and wanted to aspire to be like her. But of course, I was like pretty in a strict household, even though I was sneaking out at night. I didn't have a lot of freedom to pursue that or knowledge of how to pursue that. So it was only until college that I started like finding photographers to take photos and submit them to people. So that probably happened like around sophomore year.
And at that time, we're like, okay, I'm really going to pursue this as, a livelihood, a career.
I think maybe that happened like my junior year when I moved to LA, but I was at UCSD, so it was kind of hard to seriously pursue anything there because there's just not that much of an industry.
So you're going to college and your parents are happy about that, but you're sort of taking this non-traditional path at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, they have no idea of this other path. But I think my good Asian kid amends to them is that I did graduate, even though I had no interest in doing so. But that was just kind of understood since I was a kid that you will graduate from a good college.
So you only went to college to satisfy them.
Yeah. But I will say I do love saying It doesn't matter now, but when I first graduated from UCLA, I loved saying I graduated from UCLA, but I don't think it really did anything for my career because it's not relevant to, I guess it all kind of comes full circle because I went to UCLA, and since I didn't care about what I was studying because I wanted to do entertainment, I chose Asian American Studies because that was famously a super easy major.
Okay.
And it was an easy A. But now I'm talking about and writing about Asian American issues, which is surprising, and it kind of comes full circle accidentally.
Had you been a singer all your life, or when did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I would sing at home, but not professional. I wasn't like in any choirs or anything like that.
And so how did the band come about? Was that also a rebellious thing, or was that a pursuit of passion?
I think I always wanted to be a singer in my mind, but there was not one single Asian female singer in America. So it was like, oh, I don't think this is like a thing that you can actually do. So I always had it in my mind. And then it was only after I had achieved some like notoriety with the import modeling that I had a platform. And that's when I started to find producers and like kind of dip my toe in recording songs. The band came like maybe 5 years after I started doing a solo career. And that kind of happened by accident too, because I met my bassist and then we were like, oh, we both listen to rock music. So that was all kind of accidental too.
And you said you didn't intend for it to be all female or all Asian female. That just sort of happened by accident.
That was totally by accident. So I met Kat and we were both like, oh, we listen to Guns N' Roses. Like, why don't we? Because I was a solo singer trying to do like pop music and it wasn't really authentic to me. And when I met her, we thought to start a band. And then at that time, Tila Tequila was also starting to do music and rock. So it seemed like, oh, okay, maybe there's like something, like some window of opportunity here. And we had white guys in the band. We had a white drummer, we had a white guitarist, and we played a lot of like Hollywood dive clubs mostly. And then, you know, the drummer left and then a Asian drummer happened to be around and we added her in, and the guitarist, like it just happened by accident. But once all the Asians were there, we started booking much better gigs. Like it just seemed more of a unique product at that time.
And I think you said in an interview that in that industry, you're either like enormously famous or struggling, you know, to put food on the table. Something like that.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of in between, I don't think.
Reflecting on your time with Nylon Pink, was there a particular moment on tour that made you confront the intersection of performance, identity, and stereotype?
I don't know if that happened on tour. I think we knew from the beginning that it would be, we're both capitalizing on the fact that we're all Asian females, and also that will be something that holds us back because that does not exist in America right now. You know what I mean? Like a household name, all Asian band. I guess it's still, well, still an Asian American one doesn't exist, right? Because Blackpink was South Korean. But yeah, we always realized that it would be both a selling factor and something that's like going to be limiting.
Was that something that you guys openly discussed?
I don't know if we discussed it, but I feel like there were sometimes like doors that were closed to us because of it. And nobody explicitly said, oh, it's because you're Asian. But like we thought that was probably the reason. Yeah.
And what was it like? You toured all over the world.
Yeah, that was amazing. And probably one of the more fun parts of being in the band. But yeah, we played the Hard Rock in, we had a tour of like Macau and Penang, Malaysia and China. And we did some stuff in Japan, and then we did America, obviously.
You know, getting this broad picture of your life and, you know, which you were coming out of from Upland, and then the modeling and the band, were you feeling happy and fulfilled as like in those peak moments of the band where you're like, oh, this is the life that I wanted?
In the peak moments, yeah. But I would say that most of the time was not in the peak moments. And touring is very hard. After we had been on a couple of tours is when I got disillusioned with the band, because I will be very honest. Like, I grew up watching MTV, and you like come out and do one splashy, huge song. And that's all I ever really wanted to do. I wanted to go on stage and perform our 3 best songs and leave. But like on tour, you have to do an hour set, and then you have to do it night after night after night, and then like drive. Like, it's not very glamorous, and it's stressful, and I don't enjoy being away from home quite that much.
And you're the lead singer, right? Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You said you listened to Guns N' Roses, and that was like a unifying thing with your bandmate. I remember going to high school, I had like flannel shirt. I wore shorts with like 10-hole Doc Martens. And like I listened to Guns N' Roses and Metallica and all that. And I remember like that moment where I was realizing the group of friends I was with, like they didn't listen to it. And I was like, oh, I feel kind of like I shouldn't, or there's something wrong with this, you know?
Because all the Asians listen to R&B.
Yeah. Yeah. R&B or hip hop.
Yeah.
Right. And so I totally conformed to that until later on in life. I was like, I still like this music over here, you know? The band, was at the best very enjoyable for you, but still very difficult, this traveling. And when did that all sort of dissolve?
I think it happened after Tokyo, that we did Japan. And there wasn't really like a single moment. You know, I had a mentor, and I would share with her what was going on. And she told me, I think the band makes you miserable. And I was like, what? The band is my dream. Like, I love being in the band, because I have a lot of my identity wrapped up into like, I'm in a musician, and we're Nylon Pink, and we're like this like gang of best friend girls. But like, once she said that, it kind of like needled into my head. And like a year later, I was like, yeah, I think like I'm not actually very happy. And this was like after 10 years probably. So I'd been doing it for a really long time. I think at the beginning I did have a lot of fun, but by then it was kind of like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
I'm trying to find the words here. That's quite a crisis if your identity is tied into the band.
Yeah.
So then who were you if not the band?
Yeah. I guess I was kind of used to that, because I was like the import model, and then I left that and like became a singer, and then I was Elaine, which is my legal name, and then I chose to become Kaila. So I feel like I have a lot of fluidity in moving, just shape-shifting, like you said.
So Kaila, before we move on, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Okay, so I brought this shell.
Awesome.
And this was kind of a hard assignment for me.
Okay, can you show it to this camera? Yeah. Is it a conch?
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not really a sentimental person, so I kind of had a hard time with this. It kind of came up during the wildfires recently. People were like, what are you going to save from your house? And I was like, my passport. Like, I actually don't care if anything else goes. It's all replaceable. So I was looking around my house for this assignment to find an item of significance. And I saw the shell. And it's significant to me because when I was growing up, I was always a city girl, and I didn't really appreciate nature. But it was only until I got sober that I was able to like start really being present and enjoying nature and falling in love with the ocean. So this, of course, represents the ocean, and a conch shell represents tropical locations. And then it's kind of feminine in its appearance here.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for bringing that. Getting sober. Is that something you've talked about publicly?
Yeah, definitely.
What was that from?
I mean, it's from all kinds of stuff. Some alcohol, a lot of like Xanax, Valium, whatever pills I could get my hands on, ecstasy, cocaine was the main thing. K So I just like naming off the whole alphabet of drugs. But yeah, sober from all of that.
When I hear that, I hear someone trying to medicate something deeply painful, right? And you've come to that and realization.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I was in pain just from the outset growing up, just like I felt uncomfortable in my skin and I didn't know why. Yeah.
Our parents' jobs are to reflect back to us who we are.
Asian parents are like so unconditionally loving, but they aren't just given the tools in like that department of like telling kids I love you and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common expression said on this show, right? And I hope that it doesn't remain so, because it shouldn't be the punchline of a joke. It should be the genesis of real change, because it's not okay. You know, it's really not okay. To reflect back to a child who they are, you must know them, right? You must know them accurately. You must want to know them. You're no longer identified as this person. But before that, did I already skip over the your role in the movie in Fast and the Furious?
Oh, yeah.
And what was that like for you?
That was amazing because it was such a important movie to the import scene that I was a part of. And my part is tiny. I feel like it's literally, I just start the race by saying ready like twice. And, but I guess it's memorable because it's the start of like these very specific races that are pivotal in the movie. And we had so little representation at that time. The movie was a big deal because it had so many Asians in it.
Yeah, and I remember at that time thinking, wow, okay, this is not only cool to see the culture that I see here where I grew up, but more Asians, normal Asians, not doing karate in film.
Yeah. Tired of like the woo. What is it called? But yeah, no karate Asians.
Yes, yes. You pivoted to writing after, right? After the band dissolved. So tell us about that.
That was very much accidental also. So after the band ended, after I quit the band still went on for about a year. But then after that completely ended, all the band members were lost because we didn't come up with a backup plan. So me and Kiki, who was the lead guitarist, the Nylon Pink website still got a lot of traffic. So we just decided to turn it into a blog. And we chose travel as a topic because we had toured around a lot and had a lot of experience and photos and stuff. And yeah, we just started to build it up as a travel blog and it got some popularity there. And then as bloggers, you get to go on press trips, which is kind of like hotel or tourism board sponsored trips where they invite a bunch of bloggers on. And then eventually on those trips, I would meet journalists or writers. And I thought what they were doing was so much cooler than blogging, like writing for legitimate outlets. So I just kind of took classes and figured out how to do that and kind of pivoted from a blogger over to a writer.
Well, there's this theme in your story here. Like you're very courageous to just go after and do something new where a lot of people may not have that, in them to explore. Where does that come from?
That is a good question. I would just say the good thing about my parents is they just, I think for all Asian Americans instilled really a hardworking go-getter attitude. So even though I'm fearful, or I was fearful in many other ways of my life, I was never had that for my career. I was always willing to try anything.
And you've wrote other books before, and specifically on travel, right? Helping people to be able to travel who may not think that they can afford it.
Yeah, I wrote that with Kiki while we were kind of doing the blogger portion. So I'm really into 30-day challenges because I feel like if you do something for 30 days, you could really change an habit. So the book was called the 30-Day Travel Challenge because it would have you do something every single day to kind of change your mind about, a lot of people have the idea that I can't afford to travel, but you can if you save and do some hacks and like plan for it.
So this is how you started writing, right? And like what I'm fascinated about is like, how do you go from like, okay, I'm in a band and now I'm going to write and I'm going to just write and take some classes and do it professionally, or at least, to draw an income. That's quite the shift.
Well, where I think that comes from is when I was an import model, so many people said hateful things to me online, like really, really horrible things. And at first I was really deeply hurt and traumatized by it. But as it keeps happening over and over, you just stop caring what anybody else thinks. And I think that really, really helped me in my writing career, because as a writer, you're writing for published outlets, you're pitching constantly, and you're getting rejected 99% of the time. But I just have no fear of getting rejected, because that's nothing compared to somebody saying something horrible. Like some rejection of somebody not replying to your email is nothing compared to people saying horrible things to you online. So I think because a lot of writers I speak to hate and feel rejected when their pitch is not accepted, and I just don't care.
That skill, or strength rather, right? I've heard many times on this show developed in many different ways. Sometimes it's door-to-door sales. Sometimes it's, cold calling something, but getting rejected is such a teacher, right? What is your identity now? Are you a writer, content creator, creative? Like, how do you identify?
That's a good question, because there are a number of things. I would say at the moment, writer. Being a writer in 2025 requires you to also be a content creator. So I think that's just part of the job. In life now, even if you're a plumber, it will help your career if you're a content creator. Like, that's just part of life.
Sure. And where does your joy or passion come from in all these things that you're doing?
I do love when I hear someone connect with something that I wrote, and I love traveling, which I get to do luckily as part of my job, and just getting underwater, which is like pure joy for me.
Did you get underwater in Egypt?
I did. I went to the Red Sea. Yeah, which people don't think about, and that's like a major recommendation of mine. Most people don't know that Egypt is like super, super famous for scuba diving. Like, they have dugongs, and like there was dolphins and manta rays and just beautiful flourishing coral. So don't just go for the pyramids. There's also, you should make a stop by the Red Sea.
That was all in the Red Sea.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see all of it. I didn't see the dugongs, but they're there. You can see them on occasion.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, from all the horror stories, I don't know that I would care to see the pyramids in person, just because what I've seen tourists preyed upon there.
Oh, that's another recommendation of mine, to go with a tour company. Like, I would not go to Egypt by myself. I think I didn't experience a lot of the horror stories, because I was with a tour company, and they know the people, and they keep shady people around. But the one thing I do want to say is, do not ride the camels. Like, I feel like, and the tour company that I was with used to take their guests on camel rides, and they don't do it anymore, because they're like, those camels do not look taken care of, and we can't stand behind it. And I personally don't think animals should work, so I don't think it's ethical.
Kaila, I want to get into your book, how it came about, your thoughts behind it, but let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Great.
Sometimes even the best of us can slip up. That's why the law offices of Scott Wormuth are here to pick you back up again.
And while they strive to get you the biggest compensation possible, oh my gosh.
Their main concern is your health and recovery. They work closely with doctors and insurance companies to make sure you get the proper medical treatment.
Initial consultations are free, so give them a call.
At the law offices of Scott Wormuth, we're with you all the way.
I'm Scott Wormuth. We've been fighting for your rights for more than 40 years.
All right, we're back with Kaila. Kaila, before we get into your book, when we come back from break, we like to ask questions from this deck of cards called Icebreakers. And it's just a fun way for the audience to get to know us a little bit better. And I'll be answering as well. So here we go. If you could only eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It would be a braised 卤肉饭. Is I pronouncing it right? I have bad Chinese, but yeah, it would be that.
Okay.
I just love braised pork.
Okay.
And it's horrible because I love animals and pigs are they're so tasty. Yeah.
Can you say it again?
卤肉饭.
卤肉饭.
Yeah, it's like a braised pork rice.
Oh, okay.
Taiwanese dish.
Is that different from like dong po ro?
It's like that, except it's kind of shredded up small and just put over rice with gravy. But yes, it is that same piece of meat.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've answered this before on the show. For me, 100%, it's charcoal grilled ribeye steak.
Okay.
I could eat that every day. I love other things too, sushi. I think I would get sick of it, but I would never get sick of charcoal ribeye. Let's talk about your book. A lot of transformation that has to happen in your mind and how you see yourself, your journey, and the world at large that, sort of influences this book. What was the genesis of, wanting to write this book?
Again, kind of accident. So I think when the pandemic happened, and this was when I was still kind of blogging more, shifting into writing, Kiki and I were like, oh, we just had a bunch of trips canceled because travel was the first industry hit, obviously. And we were like, oh, we finally have time to master TikTok. So we saw it as an opportunity. And I started posting on TikTok and I tried all kinds of things. We tried like, oh, we're going to do a sobriety channel. No, we're going to try a travel. And we had this, I think TikTok back then was all about throwing pizza on the wall and seeing what sticks. And we just tried everything. And it was only when I started just talking about my past, people really like those videos started to really catch on. And some of those green screen videos. And so I started gaining a following doing that. And then maybe a year later, the spa shootings happened. So then that sparked the idea for an article. I forgot the title of the article, but I wrote it for Newsweek about how I feel like some of my earlier work contributed to the kind of fetishization that could result in violence. And then that article got a lot of attention. And then somewhere in that, at some point, someone was like, I think there's like maybe a book in there. So that all kind of came accidentally. It wasn't planned.
And had you already been playing with these ideas in your mind before the idea of the book, or realizing how society sort of pushes this, false narrative?
Honestly, I don't know if I thought about it too much before then. Maybe, but I don't think I thought about it that much.
And when you look back on your career, you can see, or you have ideas that this sort of helped to influence this or perpetuate this idea.
Definitely. There's a book that just came out that I devoured this past week called Girl on Girl. Has nothing to do with Asian American issues, but it's just about how that decade, the 90s and the 2000s, kind of turned women against themselves. Like it was an anti-feminist period where all women were taught like, we're sexy and empowered, like Playboy's awesome. And it's like cool to be sexy and promiscuous and all of this. And really then we just objectified ourselves and called it empowerment. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with sleeping around if that's what you choose. Like if you are a sexual person and that's what you enjoy and you're not doing it performatively or to like please somebody else, that's fine. But I think when I was modeling, I was doing it because I was trying to find validation. Wouldn't recommend that path necessarily to young women like now, I think they have a lot more choices of role models to look up to.
I learned about the different waves of feminism from my wife, who is a second wave feminist. What I understand the distinction between second and third wave is that second wave is not on board with the idea of empowerment through sex work.
Oh, okay. I think, so is third wave also post-feminism? Because I think the 2000s was post-feminism.
It might be. I don't know enough about it, but that's what she's not on board with, right?
Yeah.
And what I would be not on board with. I would say my wife really brought these issues to the forefront, to my attention, because I was like oblivious to it. And then having two girls really makes it like you can't unsee it. Mm-hmm. Your career sort of, your career in modeling, so though, capitalized on this idea though, right? And you must have thousands of experiences of this, what you call Asiaphile, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that career, right? What is that like to look back on that now?
Well, the funny thing is when you look back at your life, you usually look at the highlights and really happy parts, right? Most of the time. It's so conflicting because I look at a lot of the photos and I'm like, I love these photos, some of them. But then I think I am presenting a sexualized vision of an Asian woman, which once you put it out in the world, it could be interpreted by people negatively. And I was putting out hundreds of those photos. It did get, I would get propositioned and just get weird messages from Asiaphile men constantly.
I would say that as a young adult in my 20s, I bought into these stereotypes, completely unaware of it, right? I dated Asian women younger, and through that experience realized like women are women. There's no, like maybe there's going to be some cultural things, but in terms of like if you think that you're going to subvert them or control them, this is like a ridiculous idea. Or that they're somehow more meek or meager, or that they should be, is such a ridiculous idea.
Yeah, it is very strange. But then I go back to, because everyone's blaming the Asian fetish on like the white man or whatever, but like the submissive kind of ideology comes from Asia. I think I mentioned in the book, but like Confucianism says that women have 3 gods, or like that's your husband. No, I can't remember anything, but it's like a bunch of men, and then your son becomes your like, you become under, like you're submissive to all these men.
Yeah.
And that's like really represented well in like Joy Luck Club, where all of the women are super submissive when they're in China. The origins of this is not even from Western culture.
Can you explain your thoughts behind the posting of the pictures online? Like, what is your thought behind that? Leading up to the release of your book, what are you intending to evoke?
Oh, you mean my daily post?
Yes.
Yeah, it's literally because I feel nostalgic about that time. Sometimes when I look at the photos, like some of the photos, I thought like, wow, I love these photos. They're so beautifully curated and shot. And it's also, I think right now people are so nostalgic for the 2000s and the 90s. When I post those, I'm having so many conversations with my followers about like, oh, I miss that time of the import scene or this and that. Yeah, it's just kind of giving a photo reference of what the book's about, I think.
You've written about the influence of media portrayals on your self-image growing up. Can you recall a specific film or character that impacted you and how that realization shaped your journey?
I think absolutely. I think Memoirs of a Geisha was a huge, huge influence on me because I had read the book, and then to find out years later that it was going to be turned into a movie. I think that book was very influential because the book was written by a white guy, and it was presented as like kind of factual, even though it was fiction. It's basically, if you're going to sum it up, the story of like a young girl who was trafficked underage and then sells her virginity to the highest bidder. And then her dream is to become the mistress of a sugar daddy. Like, that's the happy ending. So it's actually a very tragic tale, but like when we watch it, we're like, oh, this is so beautiful because it's beautifully shot, and
right.
It's like a gorgeous, well-produced movie, as is the book. The book is beautifully written.
There is a danger to perpetuating this stereotype, right? That I assume that you're fighting against, right? Mm-hmm. To bring some light to this. What is the danger of this stereotype just continuing in society as you see it?
Well, it's literally that the geishas are just objects. Like, they're to be traded, sold off, and like passed around to men. And it's not that hard. It's just like, okay, let's compare it to hardcore pornography today. Like, I've read studies that says, I don't know how accurate this is, but like young men who grew up on pornography, some of them have a hard time being with real women because they don't look like the women in pornography. So media totally influences like how we act in real life. So if we're portraying Asian women constantly as submissive on the screen, it's really no fault of a man just watching it thinking that a woman might be submissive. Like, that's what's being presented to him, and media is so influential.
Are there Asian women in Hollywood or TV movie that you look up to, that you see like their role is not portrayed like that?
I love Gemma Chan. I think she has a very elegant, like, beautiful demeanor. I'm a huge fan of Lisa from Blackpink. I like K-pop, by the way, is problematic in its own way because like that complex just they treat the stars horribly. I think she provides just like kind of a empowering, sexy but reserved kind of style. And I have to mention Lucy Liu. Like, she didn't influence me as much growing up because by the time she came out, I was already, I think, in my 20s. Like, she had iconic roles like Oren Ishii and like so many others. And she really did break boundaries for Asian women.
Was she in Charlie's Angels?
She was. That was
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, that was gorgeously shot also. Yeah.
Was there any specific interaction or experience in the entertainment industry that made you stop and question whether you're being celebrated or being consumed?
I mean, I feel like all women are consumed in the entertainment industry back then, at least. I think just the fact that when I went to audition for roles, it was always prostitute or kung fu women, which makes you like so pigeonholed and objectified that you're consumed as just disposable fodder in a movie. It's not like some deep, like Oren Ishii, that's like a character that's not consumed. You know, she's multifaceted. And even though people say that that still acts out the dragon lady stereotype, it was a groundbreaking role at the time.
I think I understand what you mean when you say consumed, but can you describe it for someone who may not understand what that means?
I think it's just being not seen again. You're a stereotype and you're only fit into this box and you're like a side piece. You're like a you're never like the main character who affects the film and has resonance.
Who you are as a person is never really brought to life. It's just the objectification. Going back, I wanted to ask this question from you. You had shared that you performed for your father one summer hoping for his validation. Can you walk us through what you were feeling in that moment and how it shaped your view of love or self-worth?
Yeah, I mean, we had been planning with my cousins for the entire summer for this show. So I was very excited to perform it for the entire family and especially my dad. And just the fact that by the end of the performance he wasn't there was really, I guess, kind of devastating for me at the time. I guess, you know, as an Asian kid, you're taught that your value is in your accomplishments. So I was always like, oh, let me like do this, that'll make me enough. But it never was enough to get me the kind of validation I was seeking that, frankly, my parents didn't know I was looking for either because we didn't communicate in that way.
Are you free of that now? Like this idea that your value comes from what you do rather than just being?
Not completely, but I would say I'm greatly healed from that. I don't know if that's ever going to completely leave me. And then maybe I don't want it to leave me because it does drive me to accomplish things, right? But I would say that it's hugely healed. Like there's been great progress made in that department.
Like you don't derive your self-worth based on this next thing and this next thing that you get and its effects on others.
Yeah. Mostly I don't. It's like 100% I don't.
In your travels as a journalist, have you encountered a cultural experience that challenged or reshaped your understanding of beauty and identity?
I don't call myself a journalist anymore. I used to, but like, because I take sponsored posts and this and that. It's so murky now, right? Journalist was one thing before the internet, but now we're like content creators and I accept brand deals. And journalists didn't used to do that, but now some journalists do. So now I just say I'm a writer because that just like makes it easier. But yeah, I do want to explain that every time because I did call myself a journalist for the longest time. But your question was whether I saw a beauty defined in different ways in my travels.
That reshaped your understanding of beauty or identity in your travels?
I mean, I would say generally not one specific instance, but I was during the pandemic making a bunch of videos about beauty standards around the world, which in like some parts of Asia, they have those neck rings that stretch your neck up to here. And they're like, this is so beautiful. And then in some other cultures, they have tattoos on their faces, and that's like the ultimate beauty. So beauty is definitely a construct. It's something like I like tall men, and then I'm like, that is a social construct. But it's like, it's been ingrained in me since I was a little kid, and then I know it's like fake, but I can't completely erase it. You know what I mean? But like attractiveness is all whatever the main culture deems is attractive at this moment. It's not real.
That's something I studied in college. I wrote a paper on trying to understand that. Were there universal things that were attractive? And by far, across all cultures, the number one attractiveness thing is health.
Health.
And the markers of health. What are the markers of health? Clear skin, bright eyes, healthy, shiny hair, right? All those things that show vibrancy are across the board standards of health. Yeah. Well, I haven't thought about that in a very long time.
Well, it's just like in our own time period, we can see that when I was growing up, Paris Hilton's body type was like the zenith. Like everybody wanted to be as skinny and straight as possible. And now it's like having a huge butt. And that changed in one generation. So it's like totally fabricated.
Your passion for the ocean is evident in your writing and adventures. Can you describe a moment underwater that felt transformative or symbolic in your personal narrative?
The first time I went to Bora Bora, which is my favorite place on earth, I was going for work and the company that was sending me said, you need to learn how to scuba dive if you're going there because you're missing out if you're going to Bora Bora and not doing that. So I took my classes here, and the moment I got underwater here in a swimming pool and was breathing, it was already magical. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm breathing underwater. It was magical. But then when I got to Bora Bora during my first dive, I saw a manta ray, and they're giant, like 8 feet wingspan, and they're so slow and graceful, and they just, it was, it's hard to put into words, just like your first time seeing such a massive creature underwater.
I've been to Bora Bora. I have a pretty crazy story from there. We stayed at the Transcontinental or Intercontinental. I forget. I think you said recently in a social media post that you like the excursions, like at places. Every morning I would get the kayak from the swimming area, and I would go from the outside of the, I don't know what it's called, but
the lagoon.
Yeah, like it's huge, right? So the outside, and I would take the kayak to the center and kayak back, and that trip took like an hour.
Oh wow!
Right, because it's pretty far. And then the water from the resort, it's like that clear water, and then after a little bit, it's just that deep dark blue water, right? And I would do that every morning and come back, and the pool attendant who would rent me the kayak would see that, And I was like, what else is there to do here? You know, is there anything else? And he's like, the guy, he's going to go spearfishing later on. I was like, okay, I want to do that too. Anyway, he was definitely afraid of me doing that because you had to go to the outside of the reef. So here's the, Bora Bora is like this, and you have that ring, and then there's the mountain in the middle. The outside is the wide open Pacific Ocean. Yeah, so he took me out there. I could have died.
It's kind of hard to spearfish with no experience free diving, no?
I had zero experience,
yeah.
and he only spoke French and Tahitian.
I was surprised they took you out. It seems like a liability.
Well, he didn't want to.
Yeah.
He said no at first, and then I told him, I said, like I was motioning, because I couldn't speak with him. I was like, every morning you see me go out there, like I'm a strong swimmer, so I was trying to convince him to let me go, but I had no idea how dangerous it actually was. When I was standing at the edge of the reef as the waves were crashing on the coral, and I understood what I had to do, I wanted to back out, but he had already jumped in. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to be the jerk who's like, okay, now I'm going to go back.
So how was it? Did you catch any?
So once I got over like getting in the water, it was so calm. I looked in, there was like a 25-foot cliff underwater, fish everywhere. And he was going down and he was spearing fish, and I was just watching him. And when he would come to me and he would hook it onto this like 2-liter bottle at the top, after a while he was like splashing the water, trying to get my attention, and he's pointing, and there was a shark. And I was like, great, like this is, now I'm really terrified, right? And the shark just stayed maybe 20 feet away and turned off. And then he goes to get some more fish again. And then he's splashing the water again, and like there's the shark, either the same one or a different one. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, what are we going to leave? What's going on?
Was it a big shark or a little shark?
It was a blacktip reef shark. So probably was like,
they're probably harmless.
6-7 feet. But still, when you're in the water,
Yeah.
So after the second time, I was like looking everywhere, bobbing my head, and I noticed that he was doing that the whole time. And I didn't realize it because I was just so ignorant and looking at all the fish, like, oh, look at all the fish. But he was looking out for us the whole time, and I should have been like looking after him too. But I actually felt safer then because I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's experienced, Yeah, that was a crazy, crazy adventure. We got out, a wave took me out, and we were both rolling on the coral, got all cut up. We lost the fish, but yeah, it was a crazy adventure.
Wow.
But yeah, that was my story from Bora Bora. So the water was a very magical experience for you, I imagine, there.
I mean, there's no more beautiful water than there.
And extremely ridiculously hot.
Yeah, it's warm and clear and like 50 shades of blue.
Sure. Yeah. So Kaila, your book, what is the message, or like you started this show with that it's educational, right? What do you hope that the reader will get from it or learn from it?
I think I want obviously both men and women to read it, and they'll get different messages. I want women to just, like young women especially, to know there's nothing wrong with being sexy and wanting to feel beautiful and everything. But just don't, because you still see women doing it today and treating it like that's their best thing to offer in the world. I would just say it's like one of your minor tools, and spend more time building up all the other, your intelligence and your creativity, all the other parts. Don't centralize your sexuality as your superpower, because that's what I did. And I think that's harmful. And for men, I would say there's nothing wrong, because I get the question all the time, am I fetishizing and objectifying women? There's nothing wrong with, I think, appreciating a sexy woman or whatever. But I think fetishists are the minority, but they're very, very vocal. And they're men who see women purely as sex objects. Disposable, interchangeable. Let me sleep with as many women as possible. I'll replace her with the next one. I would say that's kind of my definition of a fetishist, or a guy who objectifies women. And that's not most men.
That's not most men.
I don't think that's most men, yeah. I believe that men are essentially good, most of them. But there is a very strong, group of men who are, I don't want to say bad, but don't respect women as fully faceted human beings. So I'm hoping they read the book and kind of see the point of view of what it feels like to be objectified.
Before we close out the show, just to touch on this point, that 1 in 6 women are victims of domestic violence. And domestic violence is, when people hear that, they automatically think of like physical abuse, but it's all about control. And the control idea is first brought about that they should be controlled, that somehow men are superior, right? Otherwise, why am I going to enact this thing of control if I don't believe first that I'm supposed to, right? And it's so pervasive in society. Sorry, I'm touching on that because, you know, I have women in my life that I love, my daughters, and you know, it's something that people should really look at it and not just like continue to make it the butt of jokes. And you touched on it being very just casual, like people don't even think that it's a bad thing.
Yeah. I think it's like just the conversations bring awareness, because if something's so normalized, you don't even think like, oh, that's just what everybody thinks and everybody says.
Right.
So the conversations like this kind of open the door to exploring different ideas.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say if you're a male out there and it's difficult for you to hear that or you know, to admit, just be open to the idea and explore it. Right? There's no harm in that. Kaila, we're going to move on to the final segment of the show. We're going to get to talk about some food and the places that you like to eat here in the San Gabriel Valley. So, Kaila, this is the SGV3, and we want to know your 3 favorite places to eat in the San Gabriel Valley. So what would be number 1?
Lou's Garden. Lou's Garden, and I love this, is when you go and just choose like the 3 different items and pair it with rice. So that's what Lou's Garden is.
Where is Lou's Garden?
I think it's on Valley in San Gabriel.
Is it close to here?
I feel like it's close to here, and I don't remember for sure. But, you know, they have all those hot plates out of the different items, and you just point at 3 or 4, and they give you a biendong, like a lunchbox.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
The next one is Singbala, and that's a Taiwanese place. And it's really popular for their homemade sausage, Chinese sausage. But I like to go there for the shaved ice. And I like it because they have their very traditional shaved ice. It's like so popular, trending right now to have that fluffy snow ice. I like that fine, but I like the traditional one where you can get almond jello and like tangyuan. I don't know how do you say that in English. But they have a million sides, and you just choose the shaved ice with condensed milk. And the last one,
Singbala used to be like really, really popular.
Yeah, it's probably
sort of died down a little bit.
Yeah.
But do you eat the sausage with the raw garlic?
I do, but again, I do. I like that for sure. But I preferred the braised pork there because I'm just such a braised pork. They have a lunch plate with the braised pork instead of the sausage. But I do like it with the raw garlic too.
My Taiwanese friends would go there for the oyster omelet.
That's good too. Yeah, that's very good too.
I forget, it's called bing something. The ice.
Tuabing.
Tuan bing.
Yeah.
And so I would get coconut jelly, rice ball, and either green or red bean, something like that.
My order is, what did you call it? Rice balls with just tangyuan, almond jello, and lychee. Yeah.
With the brown sugar or no?
The brown sugar comes with it, I think, automatically, and definitely condensed milk. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That brings back a lot of memories. And a third place?
Bistro Nas. They do like imperial court Chinese cuisine. They have really great Peking duck, and they think they only make 8 a day, so you have to pre-order it. And yeah, that's like more fancy Chinese food, but very good.
I think I've only eaten there once. Oh, I have only eaten there once. Actually, this brings back another memory. Scott was in here with my friend Albert, and we were talking about it. And Albert says, "Oh, we should go there." And I was like, "We have been there." I was like, with you and Scott. Because they're like, oh, yeah. We ate in that side room or back room with a huge table with like 12 chairs. It was beautiful. Like the wood carving and everything that they brought out on those serving platters.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Beautiful place.
The crispy mushrooms I think we had, and
crispy shrimp is really good.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Kaila, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. If people want to get a hold of your book or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So the book's available in any bookstore. And on social media, you could just find me by my name, Kaila Yu. And that's my website also.
Awesome. Well, Kaila, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There you go. Another episode in the books. I really like how Kaila at the end there said that, just having conversation brings about some awareness to it. And maybe, that through this conversation, you may have an awareness of it or a newfound awareness of it and look into these things. We all have a mother. A lot of us may have sisters or daughters. And this is something that I would say not only affects only Asian women, but women in general. So go check out the book, Fetishized. I think by the time this show is released, it should be releasing within a few days. So go check it out. If you like this kind of content, please consider becoming a subscriber. Don't forget to like and share. And if you want to see the full back catalog of episodes, check out our website at mysgv.net. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us on the MySGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Scott Wormuth, directed by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers, and original music by Yone OG. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind of mother.